Callender into a save down to his left. Big save there. Joseph Martinez from 25 yards on, tries the curl. Negri trying to flick it through, and it comes to the back post, and it's a debut goal for Serhii Krivtsov. Hits it off the post. Borgelin saved off the left. Borgelin again has scored. Gives Miami the comfortable lead.
Welcome in to another edition of the Inter Miami Show. It's a difficult opponent away from home, and ultimately a fourth consecutive game of drop points for Inter Miami as they lose by 1-0 away at FC Cincinnati. My name is Chris Whittingham. I'm joined by Kieran Gibbs. Plenty to get to over the course of this show. We'll show you the highlights from that game against Cincinnati, break down a controversial penalty decision that was then overruled against Inter Miami, and look ahead for next week in terms of our interview that we have with Federico Higuain, which is coming soon, the MLS Next Pro manager here for Inter Miami 2. We'll actually take a look at the highlights of that Inter Miami 2 game that they played at the weekend against Philadelphia Union 2, their first win of the season. And we'll look ahead to the weekend's match against FC Dallas. But, Kieran Gibbs, what did you make of that performance on Saturday against FC Cincinnati? Difficult game, but there was not really a ton in it.
Yeah, this will be a difficult one for them to take, Chris, because I actually thought they controlled large parts of the game and they really took the game to Cincinnati. It just came down to set piece again in the end, which we said a few weeks ago that, these small, fine errors cost you a lot over the course of a season. So I hope they don't get discouraged by the performance, because the performance was there. I just think they focus on the small details and they'll be able to shift things.
As we can take a look now at the highlights from the game, Miami did, I thought, a fairly decent job of negating a lot of what FC Cincinnati tried to do going forward. They're a team that have three prolific forwards in Brenner and Acosta and Brandon Vasquez, but in the end, not really a ton of clear goal-scoring chances. As here, one of the early ones, we mentioned Brenner from a long way out. That's straightforward work for Drake Callender. This was less straightforward for Drake Callender. Again, another long-distance effort. This time, again, Brenner steadies himself to strike, and Callender, a nice leaping save.
Yeah, Drake was great again, and I feel like they controlled this part of the game really well. This was a really fine effort here. Like, this could have gone either way, this decision, and really could have changed how the game played out. The ref decided not to give it in the end, but Miami really stepped up the pressure towards the end of the first half, and especially in the second half.
Yeah, the sliding challenge comes in from Angulo on Rodolfo Pizarro. Referee initially gives it as a penalty. I think Kieran and I are going to argue about this decision in a little bit, but after a consultation with VAR, it is determined that the challenge happened outside of the area, and so the free kick would come. Joseph Martinez's strike would go into the wall. In the first half stoppage time, it would be a header from Mosquera that would get FC Cincinnati on the score sheet. In the end, the lone goal in the game.
Yeah, and we mentioned about the set pieces. Sometimes they're just the smallest, slightest details, and they'll want to focus on that a lot, because it's something that the coaches are really passionate about.
Yeah, and that set piece opportunity, fairly straightforward and turned in by Mosquera. And then second half, chances would start to come from Miami. Franco Negri with a decent strike that only is denied by the woodwork.
Yeah, great effort from him. I thought he had another outstanding game. He was one of the best performers for me again for Miami.
Yeah, and have a look at this strike. Celentano is hoping that it strikes the crossbar, because he was not going to get to that strike. And on the full-time whistle, Miami would in the end drop the result by 1-0 to Pat Noonan's FC Cincinnati. Let's hear the thoughts of the Inter Miami manager after this one. Here's Phil Neville.
I thought we dominated the game. I thought we were the better team by far. We were always going to struggle. We were always going to struggle from set plays with the team that we had out against the team. But I thought my players played with so much courage, bravery, fight. I felt as if it was one of our best performances of the season. We deserved to get something out of the game. I thought we deserved to win the game. And we feel really, really disappointed to come away with no points. The results aren't going our way. That's the frustration bit. That's the bit that we need to stop. That's the bit that we need to focus on. But we're not a team that's wobbling. We're a team that's playing with full of confidence. And I've got to say, we came to. I feel as if we came today to the best team in the conference. We're one of the best coaches in the conference, with the best set of players in the conference, who are really informed, who I think most people outside of our football club thought they were going to turn us over in a big way. And we dominated the game. We were the best team on the pitch. So I think there needs to be real perspective with tonight's performance. I think it was an outstanding performance by a group of players that played really, really well, and we just need to keep showing that level of confidence. This league is tough. You get punished. Sometimes you get punished for little mistakes, and we're getting punished for little mistakes.
And those are the thoughts from Phil Neville after the game. Kieran, what do you make of that message from Phil Neville? It seems to me to be something where he's trying to imbue a sense of confidence into the players. Yes, you've lost some games here, but still believe in what you're doing, believe in the process, and ultimately the results will come.
Yeah, look, I think the biggest thing to take from that is what he said is perspective. The team is still gelling. There's still a lot of players missing through injury, and I think he feels that the result is a bit unjust because of the performance. And to be honest, I think rightly so. When you get to this level of the game, it's really the smallest details that matter, that can change a win to a loss or a draw. And I think if the team just focus on these small details, they'll be able to turn things around for sure.
When you and he talk about the positive elements of the performance, what are you referring to? What for you was the standout element of this game that allowed Miami to be so competitive?
I felt the desire to get back into the game after going 1-0 down was the biggest thing, and I think in the second half especially, the centre-backs were high, the back four was high, they were pushing up, and they were really trying to get back into the game. A lot of the play was in their half of the pitch, especially in the second half, and then you had subs coming on to really try and get the team back into it, and that was the most pleasing thing for me.
Yeah, second half performance was certainly strong from Miami. Ultimately, just couldn't get that decisive goal. Let's have a look now at that penalty decision. We mentioned we were going to kind of discuss it with that 35th minute decision. Again, the challenge coming from FC Cincinnati's Angulo on towards Rodolfo Pizarro. Just a bit of loose touches, Miazga loose, Haglund loose, and then goes through Pizarro. And Kieran, what did you make of that decision in the end?
Well, obviously, I would have loved to have seen a penalty given, but I think, being part of the defenders' union, it's always a tricky one. But look, I mean, it's so close. It's so close. And for me, the contact does come outside of the box. It was unfortunate for the boys because I think that could have really changed the game. And, they just have to keep going and relying that these small decisions are going to eventually come in favour of them.
Yeah, I think, and look, ultimately the referee gave it after looking on VAR. The VAR flagged it up. Some refereeing experts have weighed in and said that it was a penalty. For me, just as a philosophical point, I feel like a foul does not start or does not end at the very second that it begins, right? It continues. Pizarro falls over into the area. The challenge continues into the area. I felt like that could have been justified as a penalty, just sort of through my interpretation of it. Now, in the end, as you said, it was given, and Miami cannot sort of overly lament the decision, but I can see the case for it being a pen.
We'll have to get the rule book out, Chris.
Yeah, we'll have to get some refereeing experts around here. But in terms of the overall, the bigger picture from these 4 games that Miami have dropped, what for you are the things, if you're to try and see something where this upcoming Saturday, and we'll get into the specifics of the matchup against Dallas, but in the overall, what do you think are the 1 or 2 things that maybe Miami could improve upon to get some better results here?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to repeat myself too much, but I can't stress how important it is enough of these small details, I think that's going to be the biggest thing. The coaches will want to focus on things that probably we don't really see as fans. When you're watching the game live, there's so many different components that...
Can you give us an example of one?
Well, I think, like, for example, the set piece there, I feel, Joseph may have stepped 1 or steps too close to the corner taker. Mm-hmm. And if he holds his position, even just a yard, that can make the difference. And so it's these kind of small things that, over the course of a season can really make the difference.
Yeah, those fine margins that sometimes it's just that 1 yard, and that seems so harsh, but in the end, those can be the things that determine the outcome of seasons. But ultimately, Miami are looking for a better outcome this upcoming weekend against FC Dallas. We'll talk about that later on, but want to focus now on Inter Miami 2, who got their first win of the year. Let's have a look at the highlights from their game against Philadelphia Union 2 at the weekend, traveling to Subaru Park to take on a side that certainly brings through tons of talented young player. It's a difficult place to go and play, and Miami would get an early goal here. Nice run down the left side from Nick Sesak, the left back for Inter Miami. Good right-footed strike and turned in by Lucas Meek, the former Indiana Hoosier, University of Washington Husky. I'm sure he would mind my confusion there, but it gets his first professional goal scoring for Inter Miami 2. And CJ Dos Santos, the third goalkeeper for the first team, getting fingertips to it to tip it onto the bar. Impressive save there from CJ in the end. And then Philadelphia Union 2 would eventually get that equalizing goal, back post, header down there, and Nelson Pierre turning in for Union 2. And you'd think at that point, we're heading towards a shootout in MLS Next Pro. There's a shootout at the end of every single game if it ends in a tie, but it did not. Header through the area, Farid Sarsar, the center back, coming forward and getting the goal from center back with just a minute left to play in the game. And Miami 2 getting their first win of the year under Federico Higuain, who is the manager of this club, managing just his second game. Going back to last year, it was actually 4 without a win for Inter Miami 2, so they get the big win, and you actually had the chance to talk to the big man, Federico.
I did, yeah, and it was a pleasure. I'm really happy for him to get his win. Federico's just such a great character, and I feel like he's the perfect mold for, a club like this, working with young players. He's so passionate about the game. I really think he's got all of the capabilities of being a top-class coach. I won't spoil too many things and wait for the interview to come out, but really impressed with Federico, and I'm really excited to see how he progresses as a coach.
As you mentioned, the interview will be coming out soon here on MLS Season Pass here in the club room for Inter Miami. Here's a little snippet of Kieran's chat with the Inter Miami 2 manager, Federico Higuain.
I don't care if you like the football my team is playing, but you understand what you're doing.
This is Fedi's team.
Exactly.
Right.
And I think that's the biggest, I believe, because I'm new. I'm talking just imagine, but I believe that's the dream and achieve as a coach. It is what it is, and we have to adapt, and we have to execute, and we have to try to play, compete, and win.
And as we said, you will see that here on MLS Season Pass. Before long, an interview with the Inter Miami 2 manager, Federico Higuain. Let's turn our attention towards the weekend, a Saturday night contest back here at DRV PNK Stadium. Inter Miami taking on FC Dallas, the side that did finish in the home playoff positions last year. Bring through some American internationals into that team. Paulo Arriola, Jesus Ferreira. You have a dynamic Argentine winger. But Kieran Gibbs, it's time for your 3 points to 3 points. What for you are the things that are the key to an Inter Miami win this weekend?
Okay, so this weekend for me, the first thing is definitely going to be to stop Dallas from wide areas. I feel like they like to cross from all different types of positions on the pitch, and they can be a threat from there. So I think, stopping that at source will be key. The second thing I'd like to see is just the small details, the set pieces, the positions of the players, things that we don't really see, that the coaches will know. I think that is going to be another key thing. And then the third thing that I think I'd want to see is a really fast start. We're at home. I'd like to see them come out of the traps really fast, aggressive, get the home fans behind them. It's our secret weapon here. And we want to see La Familia in full force. And I think a fast start is going to be the key for that. So, yeah, let's go.
Yeah, let's end this losing streak already for Inter Miami. 4 games without a win, playing a difficult opponent, albeit here at home in FC Dallas. Now, before we go, we do want to tell you about something going on here at the club. You can now have an Inter Miami license plate. If you scan the QR code on the screen, you can have your license plate changed from a normal standard like everybody else's Florida license plate and change it to an Inter Miami license plate. Just scan the QR code on the screen and you can begin the process to have an Inter Miami license plate on your car. That'll do it for us here on the Inter Miami show. We will actually not have a show next week because Inter Miami are on a bye. Off week for Inter Miami in between games against 2 Texas teams. It's FC Dallas at the weekend, then in 2 weeks' time away at Houston Dynamo, a first trip to the BBVA Stadium for Inter Miami. That'll do it for us here. Thanks to our tremendous production team and my partner here, Kieran Gibbs. Talk to you next week.